It is February 2026. Global supply chains freeze as a massive oil tanker burns on the open ocean following US and Israeli strikes on Iran. This chart shows the immediate economic fallout. Brent crude oil prices violently spike 13%, instantly crossing the $100 per barrel threshold. 2 years earlier, a viral Chinese academic named Jiang Xueqin predicted this exact war, right down to the political return of Donald Trump. He also made a third, far more chilling prediction. Despite its overwhelming military supremacy, the United States will ultimately lose this conflict. The cause of this impending defeat has nothing to do with superior firepower. It comes down to the inescapable laws of geography and game theory, centered entirely on one tiny strip of water. This is the Strait of Hormuz, a massive geopolitical bottleneck 21 miles wide. 20% of global daily oil supply moves outward. But the Gulf Cooperation Council, the bordering Arab states, rely on this exact route for 80% of their imported food. This trade dynamic is the engine of the petrodollar. The petrodollar is a system where international oil sales are denominated entirely in US dollars, creating constant global demand for the currency. Closing the strait achieves two things simultaneously. It starves American allies of basic sustenance, and it directly threatens the financial foundation of the American empire. The geography of this war creates a severe mismatch. Iran operates as a massive, decentralized mountain fortress. The rugged terrain allows Iran to hide thousands of drone and missile bases, making traditional U.S. air supremacy highly ineffective. Across the water, the U.S.-backed Gulf states are flat, highly exposed glass deserts with virtually no natural defenses. Their ultimate vulnerability is water. These desert nations rely on exposed coastal desalination plants for 60% of their fresh water supply. Iran can absorb attacks deep in its mountains. Meanwhile, the Gulf states face catastrophic damage from just a few cheap drone strikes hitting their water infrastructure. The standard U.S. military playbook relies heavily on decapitation strikes, designed to eliminate enemy leadership. We see this exact tactic executed with the targeted assassination of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. From there, the U.S. utilizes a network of exposed air bases scattered across the flat region to launch further strikes and try to foment internal rebellion. But Iran counters with a strategy of pure attrition. They use hidden proxy groups to relentlessly strike those undefended U.S. bases and Gulf pipelines. Iran has no intention of defeating the U.S. military on a traditional battlefield. They simply need to strangle the region's resources long enough to outlast the American economy. When the blockade holds, the macroeconomic devastation ripples outward immediately, beginning with Asian economies running dry of energy reserves. This flowchart tracks the resulting damage. Gulf oil revenues normally convert into U.S. dollars and flow straight into the American stock market. When the strait closes, that vital investment pipeline is slammed shut. Without that Gulf capital, U.S. tech companies hemorrhage value. Domestic inflation spikes, and the American economy stares down a severe depression. The true theater of this war sits inside the global financial markets, where the United States is uniquely exposed. This diagram illustrates the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is a cognitive bias where people continue investing in a losing proposition simply because of the resources they have already spent. Trapped by this psychology, the U.S. military might be forced into a disastrous, large-scale ground invasion of the Iranian mountains to save face, protect the petrodollar, and secure the strait. On the geopolitical sidelines, China ignores the conflict entirely to maintain internal stability, while Russia watches the U.S. voluntarily drain its own resources. Back home, an endless, bogged-down war triggers mass protests, the looming threat of a military draft, and deep civil unrest. Jiang's prediction holds true. In modern conflict, overwhelming firepower means very little if your opponent controls the geographical choke points of the global economy.